Who among us does not know Diego Armando Maradona? A player of great achievements, beautiful dribbles, and numerous challenges. He overcame the odds to rise above everyone else in the world of football. But at what cost? There was always two sides to the Maradona story. A story on the pitch and another one outside of it. And sometimes these two sides clash together. This is the story of Maradona and how he left his eternal mark on football.
Worldwide suspension for using cocaine. The career of one of the all-time greats is all but over.
Diego Armando Maradona was born in poverty in the southern area of Buenos Aires, in particular in Villa Fiorito. His parents had passion for football, as football was one of the few things that the poor had in their disposal. His uncle Cirilo handed Diego a football for his third birthday gift. Maradona said later in an interview that first football was the most beautiful present of my life. He played on the streets near the waste ground, and the tricky terrain made the ball bounce awkwardly, which was very hard to control. This made Diego hone his talents and teach him control of a football at a very young age. But to survive in Villa Fiorito, Diego had to choose one of two options. Either he joins one of the several gangs that ruled the suburb, or focus on football. His parents naturally encouraged him to focus on football because they saw his natural talent and gave him the needed room to develop. At age 8, Diego caught the eyes of talent scout Francis Cornejo, whom was preparing an under-9 team for Club Argentinos juniors. After the initial trials, Francis was astounded and was convinced that Maradona was older than his real age because of his style of play. In 1969, Diego was part of Los Cibolitas, the junior team of Argentinos juniors. He was a natural star and leader for the team, as he played as a number 10 and the coach gave him freedom to roam and experiment. In 1972, Diego earned his first small piece of fame when he showed off his juggling skills as part of the halftime program in Argentina's first division. He was later interviewed for the first time in his life and was asked about his dreams, as he said, "My first dream is to play in the World Cup." Diego's performances with the junior side in 1974 pushed El Gráfico magazine in sending a journalist to cover Maradona, which was a novelty for a player in this specific age group. On the 20th of October 1976, and 10 days before his 16th birthday, Diego made his official debut with Argentinos juniors, as he became the youngest player in the history of the Argentine top flight. Diego knew from a young age how to play against older players, and learned how to avoid tackles and kicks. He dribbled and jumped past tackles and pushed the ball forward without fear. Diego played well in the limited minutes he was given at club level, and was successfully called up by the national team coach Cesar Minotti, and made his national team debut at age 16 against Hungary in February of 1977. Maradona said in an interview at that time, "Everything happened too fast. I have to take it with a pinch of salt, because if I really think about it, it could drive me mad." In the beginning of 1977, Diego asked his close friend Jorge Sitterspieler to represent him as an agent. He was considered the first ever agent of an Argentinian player ever, and helped Diego negotiate his first professional contract in May of that year. It was Diego's first full season with the first team, as he helped a team short of talent in winning. He was young, but carried himself like a veteran, and quickly the team would hand him the captaincy. By the year 1978, Maradona was looking forward to being part of the national team squad when Argentina would earn the honor of hosting the World Cup. It would make him the youngest player ever to play in the World Cup, but the national team coach Cesar Minotti had other ideas and decided to omit Diego from the final selection, as he said he was very young and there were more experienced players in his position. That decision frustrated Diego badly, but his early fame did bring him some joy, as he managed to achieve his lifelong dream of meeting Pelé in Copacabana. As Pelé told the young star, "Accept applause, but do not live for it. It was a wonderful experience for the young Diego. As he said, meeting Pelé is the World Cup I didn't have. At 18 years of age, Maradona was attracting attention from other South American and even European clubs. His performances continued improving in the 78 season, as he ended the Metropolitano campaign as top goal scorer for the first time in his career by scoring 21 goals. In the summer and after Argentina won the World Cup, Diego received an official offer from English side Sheffield United. But at that time, Argentina was under a dictatorial regime, and with Menotti's advice, Diego was prohibited from being sold to any foreign club. And the official reason was to not hinder the plans of Menotti to achieve qualification to the Youth World Cup in Japan. But there were other political reasons which will be uncovered later. In the year 1979, Maradona had his best season yet. It established him as the most important figure in Argentine football. It was mainly because of his performances in the Youth World Cup in Japan that year, as Diego scored in 5 of their 6 matches and was named player of the tournament as he led his team to glory. Maradona said in his autobiography about that team, "That was by far the best team of my whole career." Earlier that same year, Maradona scored his first official goal with Argentina at Hampden Park against Scotland. Scottish legend Dennis Law said of Diego's performance, "Maradona has everything. There is nothing of his game you can fault. He is strong, brave, and skillful. He is an individual who works for the good of his team." Everybody wanted a piece of Maradona, especially the dictatorship in Argentina. Maradona was still naive and didn't have any clear political views. He was asked to serve his obligatory military service, but soon after, the military released him before his mandatory stint, as they deemed him more useful on the football pitches. And some people may think that the army had brainwashed Diego during that period, and that same military control had aided Argentinos in improving Maradona's contract with the club to persuade him to stay. He was Argentina's highest paid player, and the federation helped the club to achieve that in order to keep Maradona in the country and to protect Argentinian football. In the 1980 season, Diego scored 43 goals in 45 matches, as he helped a poor Argentinos team become runners-up in the league, which is considered one of Maradona's greatest achievements ever. In 1981, and after 12 years at Argentinos, Maradona decided finally at 20 years of age to transfer to Boca Juniors. It was a complicated transfer, as arch rivals River Plate had offered a better deal for Maradona, but Diego's desire was clear. For a sum of $4 million, Maradona transferred to Boca Juniors on loan for 16 months. Then Boca Juniors would pay another $4 million at the end of the loan to complete the permanent transfer. During these months at Boca, Maradona's life would change. He got to new heights of fame. Him and his partner Jorge created a company called Maradona Productions, which focused on luring in sponsors and monetizing the image of Diego Armando Maradona. This had officially set a benchmark for other players in the following years, as it offered a new and reliable source of income for footballers. Maradona was also one of the first players to create a medical team away from the club. The short period Maradona experienced at Boca was successful, despite his complicated relationship with the manager Silvio Marzolini. The duo of Maradona and Brindisi each scored 17 goals in the league that season, which helped the team clinch the Metropolitano title, which is the only club title Diego won in Argentinian football. But as months had passed, and after playing in numerous friendlies across the world to finance Diego's loan, Maradona felt exhausted because of the level of fame he got to in his home country. He couldn't possibly think of living a normal life ever again. He even contemplated the thought of quitting football altogether. By 1982, the American dollar had soared against the Argentinian peso, and government policies affected Boca Juniors financially and their ability to pay Maradona to secure his permanent transfer. So after 40 matches and 28 goals, Maradona played his last match for Boca Juniors in February of the same year. He then joined the Argentine national team to prepare for the most prestigious competition in the summer, the World Cup in Spain. Leading up to the World Cup, national team manager Cesar Menotti organized numerous friendlies to get his new squad to gel, which consisted of past World Cup champions of '78 and the talented youngsters of the Tokyo Youth World Championship. Maradona was one of football's superstars entering the tournament, alongside Zico and Rummenigge. They left Argentina looking for glory at a time the country was in a war with Britain over the Falkland Islands. Local media outlets, which was fueled by the government, always painted the picture of victory within the war to the players and the Argentine people. But in reality, it was a massacre. National team players started to learn the truth when they landed in Spain and saw the local news. The Argentines were affected on the pitch as they played badly in their opener against the Belgians, as both Maradona and his teammates showed little inspiration to overcome their defeat against the Europeans. Menotti's tactics didn't favor his star player, as he played as a lone striker at times, whereas their traditional striker Mario Kempes was kept deeper to assist in building up the play. This meant Diego struggled to get the ball in dangerous areas, as he was surrounded tightly by defenders. The chemistry of the squad was also off, as Maradona was not entirely accepted by the veterans as the number one star. Despite that, Argentina did win their next two matches in the first group stage, as Maradona scored his first two World Cup goals against Hungary. But struggles would appear again in the second round as Argentina faced the Italians and the Brazilians. The first match against Italy is considered a turning point in football history. Italian national defender Gentile marked Maradona throughout the match and fouled him several times. The Italians committed an absurd and astonishing 23 fouls on the Argentinians, which is considered a World Cup record at that time. Italian midfielder Marco Tardelli, whom played in the match, said, "To stop Maradona, you have to use your hands, your feet, and kick him, because otherwise there is no way to stop him." The Italians won the match by 2-1, and their defensive display was praised back home, which gave them confidence to win the tournament. Maradona and Argentina lost against Brazil, as Diego was sent off after a bad challenge later in the match. He was fed up because of the violence he received throughout the tournament. It was not the best platform to introduce Maradona to the world, and was not tactically utilized by the manager, nor did the refs succeed in protecting him. During the tournament, Pelé wrote some articles for one of the famous Argentinian newspapers and said, "My main doubt is whether Diego has the sufficient greatness as a person to justify being honored by a worldwide audience." It was a start of a war of quotes between the rising star and the legend Pelé. But despite the disappointment, clubs were still interested in Diego Armando Maradona, and one of these prestigious clubs was adamant in giving Maradona the space to deliver his talents on the European stage. As early as 1979, Barcelona had reached an initial transfer agreement with Maradona, and by the year 1982, Barcelona president Josep Núñez saw Maradona as a strategic and important signing. He had just massively expanded the capacity of the Camp Nou, and it was easier to fill these seats and acquire more business partners and secure more loans with the best player in the world playing in your team. Maradona came to Barca in a record-breaking deal, and he was also the best paid player in the world. The signing actually happened before Maradona competed in the World Cup, so there was some skepticism surrounding the transfer, especially after failing with Argentina. Within that period, Barcelona were struggling after Johan Cruyff had left the club. Despite winning the Cup Winners' Cup in the previous season, Barcelona had failed to win the Spanish League since 1974, and they had only won the La Liga title once in the last 22 seasons. The Catalan club had only their prestigious name to savor, but the president Núñez was adamant in changing that, as he invested a lot of money, but results on the pitch didn't reflect that. Maradona's arrival was a big part of the solution. Diego wanted to prove himself after the World Cup as well, especially on the European stage. That's why he eventually brought his entourage with him, which included his personal trainer and friend Fernando Signorini, whom created an individual training regime for Diego. Maradona's entourage included his agent Jorge and Guillermo Blanco, who runs Diego's media affairs, which also made him the first press officer for a footballer ever. Inspired by Argentina's military regime, Diego wanted to control the media narrative surrounding him, especially when the critics appeared from the trenches. Maradona quickly gained the trust of his teammates, which made him blend in and deliver good performances in the beginning of the season, despite him missing some matches because of injury. Barca teammate Carrasco advised Diego and warned him of going out at night in Barcelona. This warning comes because of Barca's complicated history with foreign players. Some of them succeeded in leading a quiet family life in Catalonia, like Johan Cruyff, while others fell into the trap of partying until the morning hours, like the Peruvian Hugo Sotil. Maradona found Carrasco's advice difficult to follow and quickly built a wall between him and the Barca management. When he was injured, he refused to be treated by the club's medical staff and sought assistance from his personal doctor. Maradona's relationship with management was very complicated. President Nunes said in November of 1982, a player must not only play football, but also lead an acceptable personal life. If he does not understand this, there is no point in punishing him. The best thing for him is to leave the club. Maradona responded, "I don't program anyone's life, and I don't want anyone to program mine." Slowly but surely, an ordinary match, then football is dead. Maradona was suspended for 7 matches, and that sealed the end of his story at Barcelona. Diego would later remember his stay at Barcelona as the unhappiest period of his career. Within 2 seasons, Diego scored 38 goals in 58 matches, won 3 cups, but didn't get the chance to play a season without injury, without controversy, and without a period of normality. But when would we ever see Maradona have a normal period? In the following seasons. The goal of Maradona and his agent Jorge was clear. They had to leave Barcelona, as Diego's relationship with Barca's management was unfixable. Barca Vice President Joan Gaspar tried to offer Maradona an improved contract to stay, but it was rejected, and that confirmed the end of his chapter with Barcelona. Napoli were strong frontrunners to sign Maradona, despite interest from Juventus. Surprisingly, Napoli managed to acquire the needed funds to acquire Diego's services, despite their owner not being one of the wealthiest figures when compared to Italy's biggest clubs. It appeared that someone powerful behind the scenes helped facilitate the funds. After complicated negotiations, Maradona was sold to Napoli for a world record fee of $7.5 million. Napoli president Corrado Ferlaino said in a recent interview, Napoli was not a great team, but Maradona never knew. The 3rd largest Italian city in terms of population didn't have a successful club and never had tasted success since they were founded in 1926. The team was always in the shadow of their more successful northern neighbors and barely missed relegation by a single point the previous season before Maradona's arrival. Napoli was also a city of many issues, like unemployment and escalating violence from the famous mafia of the region, the Kamora. Maradona was also joining the strongest league in the world, as he joined stars such as Platini and Boniek at Juve, Rummenigge at Inter, Falcao and Cerezo at Roma, Zico at Udinese, and the list goes on and on. But Diego's arrival at Napoli gave fans some hope, as 70,000 people attended to watch the introduction of Maradona at the São Paulo Stadium. Diego saw a lot in common between the 2 cities, Napoli and Buenos Aires. In his first press conference, Maradona was asked whether he was aware that part of his transfer was paid by the Kamora. The Napoli president Ferlaino interrupted the journalist and asked him to leave. The Kamora mafia identified Maradona as an exploitable public figure, but their first approach to him would be slightly delayed. Maradona's first season was proven to be a difficult one and didn't meet the high and unrealistic expectations set by the fans, and Maradona quickly noticed how the Southerners in Italy were perceived when he played his first match against Hellas Verona away. Diego saw a banner that read, "Welcome to Italy," as if the South was not part of the country. Maradona aired his grievance on TV and said in an interview, "There is a racism problem in Italian football, but not against the black people. There is racism against the Neapolitans." Diego quickly became a citizen of Naples and quickly implemented the motto of the city, which was Uno di noi, us against the rest, which suited Maradona's history and his simple background. But Napoli struggled on the pitch and won only 4 out of their 15 opening matches in Serie A. Maradona had to adapt to the aggressive and defensive style of Italian football. the manager Rino Marchesi didn't find the right balance, as Diego was not receiving the ball and was usually isolated and had to come deep in the back to build up play. Diego's teammates complained of the tight marking around the Argentinian, so it was hard to find and pass him the ball. But Diego refused to accept those excuses and said, "Pass it to me anyway, and I'll find a way." Napoli's results took a positive upturn as they barely tasted defeat in the second half of the season. That run included a historic 4-0 win against Lazio as Maradona scored a hat-trick, which included one of his best goals ever. Despite Maradona's huge efforts in scoring 17 goals and assisting a further 11 to his teammates in 36 matches in all competitions, Napoli couldn't overcome their slow start to the season and settled for 8th position in the league. Maradona was complaining a lot to management and was given the task of picking some players to sign as the Frenchman Alessandro Ranica joined the club, and in the following years, other players came as well based on Diego's recommendations. And the manager Rino Marchesi was replaced by Ottavio Bianchi, who brought the work ethic and pragmatism that Napoli desperately needed. Napoli's goal was to improve and lay solid foundations for which included a huge win against champions Hellas Verona by 5-0.
Maradona. Oh, an astonishing goal!
The team faced the Bianconeri at the San Paolo, and thanks to a genius indirect free kick from Maradona, they claimed a historic win over the Bianconeri. It was astonishingly Napoli's first league win over the Bianconeri in 12 whole years. And it made the Napoli tifosi believe in the Maradona and Napoli project. But despite the positive work on the pitch, there is always two sides to the Maradona story. In public and in front of the fans, Diego was a man of good deeds, like his collaboration with UNICEF and his numerous charities he does to help poor people around the world. Journalist Bruno Passarella said, "The generosity that Maradona was capable of then is unimaginable in the cold world of money that football subsequently became." But behind the scenes, Diego was taking a wrong turn. He started entering the Napoli underground and secret life along with the Kamora mafia, whom looked at Maradona as a source of power. In return for this relationship, the Kamora satisfied all of Maradona's needs. And unlike his complicated time at Barcelona, in Napoli, he was protected and unchallenged by the media and authorities. It was this underground life in which Maradona would face his demons for the rest of his life. It was at this time that Maradona would break up with his old friend and agent Jorge, citing that he was responsible for Maradona's accumulating debts, but in reality, Diego was careless with his money, as he would go on extensive and never-ending spending sprees. Diego brought a new agent named Guillermo Coppola, who lived the luxurious life and provided Maradona with everything he needed. Maradona's life was slowly shifting, as he lived the life of a king that refuses any critique. But he always had one person by his side, his personal trainer, Fernando Signorini, that brought the realism and professionalism back to Maradona's life. In the 3rd position in the Italian league, which also meant they qualified to Europe, and proved to all the challengers that this was a real project. Maradona ended the season with 13 goals and also assisted a further 6 to his teammates in 31 matches in all competitions. At 25 years of age, and with his great performances in the last few years, Maradona was yet to reach worldwide fandom, and was yet to deliver true dominance on the European and global stage. Thus, he set his sights on the upcoming tournament with the Argentine national team, the 1986 World Cup in Mexico. In December of 1983, and after 7 years of a military dictatorship, Argentina democratically elected their first president. The country was rebuilt in the following years, and the nation was optimistic. And in football terms, the Argentine Federation hired the manager Carlos Bilardo within that period, a young manager who succeeded in introducing attractive football to the Argentine league. Bilardo would soon begin his tactical discussions with Maradona since he was at Barcelona, and handed him the captaincy from veteran defender Passarella, which was a difficult and controversial decision. But Bilardo saw the young Diego as the perfect leader. Despite these positive changes, the Argentine national team suffered in their World Cup qualifiers and barely qualified to the competition in Mexico. Even Passarella was candid and said, "If we don't improve, we won't go very far in the World Cup." The issues of the team stemmed from internal tensions between the players. After the last friendly before the World Cup, there was a players-only meeting, as voices were raised and curses were shouted between the players. Eventually, they ended the meeting with a treaty, a very fragile one. In Mexico, Maradona looked to be in the peak of his physical and mental powers, despite his steep into addiction. And the poor infrastructure of the World Cup, which the rest of the teams complained about, was an advantage for the Argentinians, whom all lived and slept under the same roof during the competition, which helped in strengthening the harmony of the squad. But tournament conditions were poor overall, as pollution levels and temperatures were very high, and the stadium pitches were all dry as well. Maradona was one of the first players to criticize FIFA, but FIFA President João Havelange ordered him to shut up and play, as Maradona responded and said, "I was asking that they consult the players, the real owners of the show, because without us, they are nothing." Argentina managed to convert this newfound harmony into positive results in the group stages, after winning against the Koreans and the Bulgarians, and also drawing against the Italians. Maradona scored a goal and assisted a further 4 during this group stage. They went on to face the Uruguayans in the second round, and without scoring a goal, Maradona was influential, as the Argentinians settled for a single goal to qualify,
1-0 Argentina.
to set up a quarter-final match against England. It was hard to separate politics from football on the day of the match, especially after the Falkland War between the two countries. But Maradona told his teammates to focus. Bobby Robson and his side succeeded in playing a slower tempo to end the first half with a goalless draw. But everything changed in the second half when Maradona scored 2 vastly different goals, which will be remembered in the history books forever. When we try to analyze these 2 goals, they almost seem like polar opposites, but they belong to the same man. They represent Maradona's vastly different characters, the ugly and the beautiful, the cheat and the honest, the realist and the creative. England managed to fight back and score a goal through Lineker, and were so close to equalizing, but the match ended with Argentina winning in controversial circumstances. Maradona repeated after the match to his teammates about the handball, "It's like I stole a thief's wallet." While in the presser after the match, he insisted that he scored with his head. Argentine journalist Ezequiel Moores commented on that goal recently and said, "Football is a game of rogues. If someone does not understand that, they don't understand this game." While English manager Bobby Robson was evidently angry in his presser and said,
"And Maradona handled the ball into the goal, didn't he? Didn't he?"
Victory against England gave the Argentinians a dose of confidence, as Maradona scored a brace against Belgium in the next round and won easily.
Going at them again. Brilliant run by Maradona. Fantastic goal. Unbelievable.
They qualified to the World Cup final for the 3rd time in their history and faced West Germany, whom were finalists in the previous World Cup as well. German star Lothar Matthäus was given the task of closely man-marking Maradona throughout the match, and it worked in the first half, as Maradona couldn't influence the match. But despite that, Argentina did score the opener, and went on to score a second in the second half. But on brand, the Germans never gave up, and came back to equalize within 6 minutes. But in the decisive moments, Maradona appeared again to finally unlock the German marking.
Can he do it? It's there! has made it 3-2!
Argentina were world champions for the second time, and Maradona was a main factor in that, as he gave one of the most complete performances ever in a World Cup. He had a hand in 10 out of Argentina's 14 goals in the tournament, and it was this triumph that separated Maradona from the rest. As his teammate Jorge Valdano said, it made him an immediate hero. At that moment, it was finally sealed. He had become the myth we read about today, the legend Diego Armando Maradona. Maradona returned to Buenos Aires as a champion and was welcomed as such in Napoli. Maradona rose to the top of the world in terms of fame, but remained focused on achieving his new goal, which was delivering Napoli's elusive first league title after a 60-year wait. The team was bolstered with names such as Di Napoli and Carnevali, and also the return of young defender Ciro Ferrara from a loan. They had a real fighting chance of competing. But Maradona always surprises us with disasters, and that's exactly what happened after Napoli's win in their opening match against Brescia. News got its way to Diego's camp that Rai TV was about to broadcast an interview with a woman who claims she just gave birth to Maradona's child. The proposition was that Maradona would claim responsibility for the child, and in return the interview would not be broadcasted around the nation. Maradona immediately refused, claiming that the child was not his, and so after a short period, the interview was broadcasted around the country. Maradona had a disastrous match against Udinese and refused to comment on the matter. The day the baby was registered under the name Diego Armando Jr. in October, Napoli were eliminated in the UEFA Cup, and Maradona missed a crucial penalty. And told the reporters after the match, "It's the worst moment of my life." The birth of this child was a fundamental turning point in Maradona's story. This untouchable man was suddenly down on his knees, and for the first time in his life, he was not the sole writer of his own story. And that affected his demeanor, and suddenly drugs were not used for leisure, but turned into a necessity for Diego, a necessity to escape this reality. Maradona found comfort within the Napoli squad and with his teammates. In a show of support, club captain Giuseppe Broscolotti handed the captaincy to Maradona permanently, and Diego was moved to tears and said, "You've given me something I'll never forget. As a captain, I will bring the title." Diego ordered the club to open its doors for the fans during training sessions, as he wanted to strengthen his bond, which included another crucial win against Juve, pushed Napoli to the top of the league standings. Maradona had finally mastered the art of unpicking the variety of defensive strategies in Serie A, and also mastered the ability to avoid hard tackles from defenders. Maradona's goal against Milan at the San Paolo almost sealed the title. But only a draw would be enough for Napoli in their last match against Fiorentina at home. The Neapolitans were ready for a big party, as Napoli scored first and Fiorentina ended up earning a draw. The ref signaled the end of the match, which ignited the biggest party of Napoli's history.
È finita! Il Napoli è campione d'Italia!
Che hai sentito? Che hai provato, Diego?
La cosa più grande della mia vita, veramente, perché io ho vinto qualcosa, però
Campione del mondo.
no, il problema è che non l'ho vinto nella mia terra, capito? Questa è la festa più importante della mia vita.
Napoli won the double as well, after winning the Coppa Italia final, which made them the first southern Italian club to earn a league and cup double. Maradona and his teammates finally confirmed that the south of Italy was on par with the north. Overall, Maradona was not at the level of his World Cup performances, but still managed to score 17 goals and assist a further 7 to his teammates in 41 matches in all competitions. And he did that in what is considered the strongest and toughest league in the world. Maradona's agent Coppola managed to secure many new sponsorship deals for Diego, but his most important deal was to secure Maradona's contract extension with Napoli for a further 6 years all the way to 1993, and was also paid $12 million annually, which was considered the most expensive contract in football history at that time. In that season, Napoli signed the Brazilian Careca, who together with Maradona and Giordano would form the most feared attacking trio in the league, the famous Magica trio. Careca said, "I chose Napoli because my dream was to play alongside Maradona." That deadly trio went on to score 36 out of the team's 55 goals that season. And this trio also pushed the team to a fantastic start as they won 9 out of their opening 12 matches in the league. Juventus were struggling after Platini's early retirement, while Milan was building a new and strong team under new Rossoneri president Silvio Berlusconi. Their first encounter cemented Milan's title challenge and their superiority, as they won by 4 goals to 1 against Napoli.
And a classic goal again for Milan.
But Maradona and his teammates' reaction after that loss was very positive, as Maradona managed to score in 6 consecutive matches in the league and pushed his team to the top of the standings with 5 matches to go. A second title was on the cards, but there was something brewing intensively for Maradona behind the scenes. Maradona reached new heights of fame in Napoli. He couldn't do a single thing in the city outside the confines of his house. He was stuck in a golden prison. And here comes the role of the Kamora Mafia yet again. They offered Maradona an escape and satisfied all of his needs. And this was the secret life which was mentioned earlier. The Kamora were Maradona's principal cocaine supplier, as Diego's addiction was getting worse with every passing day. Maradona used to play a match on Sunday, and then the partying, drinking, and cocaine sniffing starts after that until Wednesday. Then he would sweat it out until Saturday to prepare for his next match. He did that for basically the rest of his career until he retired. In some cases, he would be clean for a month or 2, which usually coincides with the end of the season when competition is tough. Napoli president Corrado Ferlaino revealed in a 2003 interview that many footballers took drugs during that period, while Maradona said that there was always drugs in football, but he never took cocaine to improve his performance, and said, "Do you know the player I would have been if I hadn't taken drugs?" But all of this opened a quagmire for Maradona. He was now a tool for the Kamora, and this gang was famous for their unofficial and intricate betting system in Naples. Luigi Giuliano, a police informant and nephew of one of the heads of the Kamora, confessed that they used to fix football matches. So now we arrive at the scene of the crime. Napoli were on top with 5 matches to go, and suddenly the team lost 4 matches and drew a single one. One of these matches was a pivotal encounter against challengers Milan at the San Paolo. And thus Napoli lost the Scudetto. All the Neapolitans betted on their team to win the title, and if Napoli had won the Scudetto, the Kamora family would go bankrupt. There was no actual proof of this case, but during the season, one of Maradona's cars was destroyed, and there were robberies at some of the Napoli players' houses as a way to pressure them. Despite all of this pressure, Maradona had one of his best seasons ever, as he scored 15 goals in the league, which was a league best, as he was named the Capocannoniere. He scored a total of 21 goals and assisted a further 11 to his teammates in 37 matches in all competitions. Marseille, Madrid, and even Milan tried to lure Diego out of Napoli during that period, but whenever they met him and his agent in Naples, they were met with intimidation from the Kamora Mafia. There was also accusations from the fans aimed at Diego, as they thought he lost the Scudetto intentionally. Maradona said in his autobiography, "I never thought I'd be accused. I was ready to leave Napoli if people thought there was a player who had sold out." So he was determined to stay and show the truth to everybody. The new season started, and the president decided to renew the manager's contract. Bianchi and Maradona's relationship was complicated because of Maradona's recurrent absences from training sessions. But despite that, Napoli performed well and were battling on all three available fronts. The team especially excelled in the UEFA Cup, but injuries started to hamper Maradona's availability. He would suddenly declare himself unfit and unavailable to play in several league matches, but managed to come back just in time to play both the first and second leg against Bayern Munich in the semi-final stage of the UEFA Cup. Maradona managed to assist all of Napoli's 4 goals against the Germans. As the Italians would go on to headline their first European final ever. Their final against another German side, Stuttgart, would see a goal fest, as Maradona scored a goal and assisted a further 3 to seal Napoli's first European title.
Striker gets it back, and Maradona's made another.
At that moment, Maradona had received an offer from French side Marseille before the final, and Maradona tried to convince the president Fellaino to let him go.
Io ho detto che le do la possibilità a Fellaino a cacciare Maradona. Fellaino sa cosa fare. Io non obbligo mai a nessuno.
But the president refused and said to the reporters, Maradona will stay in Napoli as long as I want him to stay in Napoli. Maradona's relationship with the president was almost broken by that point, and the trust between them was shattered, especially as the president never bought Maradona's excuses for his several absences during the season, and trusted the press, which said that Maradona was absent because of his excessive lifestyle and partying all night. Maradona responded and said, "If the president doesn't believe me and believes the press, I cannot continue here." Following the final against Stuttgart, Diego missed several matches at the end of the Italian league season. In the last match at the San Paolo, Maradona asked to be substituted at the 70th minute because of a muscular injury, and some sections of the fans started to boo him. Napoli eventually ended the season in second position, a whole 11 points behind champions Inter Milan. Individually, Maradona had a great season on paper, as he scored 19 goals and assisted a further 18 to his teammates in 50 matches in all competitions. But Maradona's extravagant lifestyle, erratic mood and temperament, tense relationships, and constant injuries were taking a huge toll on him. Something had to be changed. Maradona's contract with Napoli, which extended to 1993, made it hard for Diego to change the course of his career. He left in the summer of '89 to Argentina and threatened to never come back. The Neapolitans and club officials felt betrayed, but Maradona insisted that there was a conspiracy against him and his family, as he mentioned in his autobiography. He also mentioned in an interview that Napoli was a city of crime. Media outlets replied with a bombshell when they finally published old pictures of Maradona sitting with several members of the Kamora, with the goal of exposing Maradona and to counter his claims of violence. They also shared threatening words from the fans and did many polls that pointed the finger of blame towards Diego. Maradona had no choice but to get back, but he had one condition. The manager Bianchi had to leave. President Fellaino had to oblige and fire Bianchi, as the more diplomatic Albertino Bigon was assigned in his position with the intention of keeping Diego happy. Maradona came back motivated, not because of the changes in the club, but because he was excited of the prospect of playing in another World Cup in the summer of 1990. So he wanted to be ready and trained harder than ever, and managed to shed some weight as well. The battle for the Scudetto was fierce between Napoli and Milan, as Napoli was suffering from internal conflicts with the fans and external conflicts with media outlets as well. It was a difficult season, but results remained positive. In the first 9 matches following Maradona's return, the Argentinian managed to score 6 goals and assist a further 5, as Napoli topped the standings. But Milan reclaimed the lead in the second phase of the season, despite Maradona's braces against Roma and Juve. With 4 fixtures to go, Milan had a 1-point lead on Napoli in the league standings, but the Rossoneri slipped up in the last few fixtures, and with Napoli winning all their matches, the Scudetto was back in their grasp. The final match at the São Paulo against Lazio was won by a single goal thanks to a set-piece assist by Maradona. The celebrations were not like 1987, but the fans were very happy with this huge achievement.
Primo scudetto, arrivato il secondo. Che pensa?
Penso che questi altri 2 scudetti in mezzo non l'abbiamo vinti. Comunque i prossimi.
Ma mamma mia, guarda, no. Ma presidente, lo dobbiamo lasciare anche che vinca un altro, no? Se no
Maradona ended the season with 18 goals and assisted a further 10 in 36 matches in all competitions, and was now preparing for the prospect of winning the most prestigious prize in football for the second time in a row. This time the tournament would be played in a familiar territory, as the World Cup hosts were Italy. Under the manager Bilardo again, the Argentinians started their title defense campaign. The squad was more or less the same from the one in 1986, but the team was not one of the favorites for the title, as they won only 7 out of their last 34 matches since the 1986 final. But they had a motivated Maradona, who stopped taking cocaine building up to the World Cup. But the Argentine leader was not in the best shape physically, as he nursed an ankle injury throughout the previous season. The Argentine national team took part in a tough group stage, as they lost their opener against Cameroon and amassed only 4 points out of their first 3 matches in the group. But fortunately for them, they just about qualified to the next round to face their eternal rivals, the Brazilian national team. Maradona managed to assist the only goal of the match, which was scored by Claudio Caniggia to send his team to the next round.
And Caniggia could score here! Argentina won!
Their quarter-final encounter against the Yugoslavians was an eventless match and went to penalty kicks as Maradona missed his spot kick. But Argentina managed to see it through and get to the semi-finals. And who was waiting for them in the semi-finals? The hosts, the Italians. And on which stadium? Napoli's ground, the São Paulo. Maradona was ready with his mind games and said to his teammates that he'll divide Italy today, and said to reporters, after so much racism, it is only now that Italians remember that Naples is part of Italy. For 364 days, they talk of the Southerners that stink. Italian midfielder Aldo Serena said that Diego's statement surprised the public and squad alike. He also said that the Italian crowd was not like the one they had in Rome in the previous round. Maradona succeeded in dividing them.
Comunque io voglio dire una cosa a tutti I tifosi italiani. Noi a Napoli abbiamo avuto tutto da Diego Armando Maradona e io sono il primo a comprare il biglietto per tifare l'Argentina. Forza Argentina!
All of this was reflected during the match, as Maradona was being insulted and whistled at constantly. The challenges and tackles from both sides were aggressive, to say the least. Italy scored the opener, and Argentina managed to equalize in the second half. And despite having one player sent off, the Argentinians defended well and managed to hold the score all the way to the dreaded penalty kicks. Maradona scored his penalty this time, and the Argentinian keeper Goycochea saved the last 2 penalties from the Italians and gave his side the crucial win.
And it's all over! The host nation's dream ends!
Maradona mentioned in his autobiography how senior FIFA officials wanted to see a final between Italy and West Germany, and how Argentina destroyed all their plans. As he said, "We've made it a total disaster, and of course, we had to pay." The 1990 World Cup final, played at the Olimpico Stadium in Rome, saw a battle between a strong West Germany side and a decimated Argentina side suffering from several injuries. Maradona was angry and frustrated even before the match had begun, as the Italians in the stand booed the Argentine national anthem. Maradona was absolutely convinced they were about to be robbed, and after an eventless first half, and in the 65th minute, an Argentine player was sent off after a reckless challenge. It was the first sending off in a World Cup final ever, and 5 minutes before the end of regulation, Rudi Völler won a penalty. Both Breme and Matthäus admitted recently that the referee was wrong, and the penalty was too soft to be given, but Breme converted the penalty successfully, as the Germans won after full time.
There it is! West Germany win the World Cup for the 3rd
Maradona ignored FIFA president Havilange when receiving his runner-up medal. He never accepted that defeat his whole life. That match signaled the end of a chapter in Maradona's story, and signaled the end of Maradona's relationship with Italian football and FIFA. Diego embarked in the dark and unknown, bruised, addicted, and devoid of passion. It looked to be the severe decline of Diego Maradona. Maradona came back to Napoli in preparation for the new season in a mentally bad shape. His drug addiction was spiraling out of control. Not even a convincing and comfortable 5-1 win against Juventus in the Italian Super Cup helped put him in a positive mindset. He fired his agent and friend Guillermo Coppola, cancelled all his commercial obligations, missed some training sessions, and missed several league matches. His new agent Marcus Franchi told him, "You can't be a player living like an ex-player." But one pivotal European Cup match Maradona almost missed pushed Napoli to the edge of what they can tolerate. After Napoli won in the first round of the European Cup by 5 goals, the Italian side faced off against Russian champion Spartak Moscow in the second round. After a goalless draw at the San Paolo, Napoli traveled to Moscow to seal the tie. But there was one crucial player missing, as Maradona missed the flight with the team and was sleeping after being hungover and partying all night. Maradona eventually woke up and traveled to Moscow in a private jet, but was late to the last preparations for the match, as the club handed Maradona's place to a young Italian talent whose name was Zola and was given the number 10 shirt. Maradona eventually entered the second half while wearing the number 16 shirt, but the match remained goalless and went to penalty kicks. Maradona scored his penalty, but Napoli lost the shootout. Throughout his career, Maradona only played in 6 matches in the European Cup and didn't have a lasting memory from it. This early exit cost Napoli millions. The president Fellaino, along with sporting director Luciano Moggi, decided that Maradona's volatile behavior could not be tolerated anymore. His performances were not justifying it. Obviously, both of them agreed they couldn't sell him because they feared the reaction of the Neapolitans, but they decided they can no longer protect him. And by protecting him, they meant protecting Maradona from the secret he hides, which was considered the worst kept secret in all of Italy. The club would no longer hide his drug abuse anymore. When Maradona came back from his long winter break, both the club and the Kamora wanted to push him towards the exit, thus they started leaking to big Italian newspapers. Everybody knew that Maradona took drugs, but there was no real evidence at that moment. But with the help of the Kamora, the treason commenced, and thus Maradona was charged with the use and distribution of cocaine in February of 1991, after some witnesses spoke out. Maradona, as ever, felt that this was a vendetta against him, from FIFA, whom felt threatened by his accusations, or from the Italian Football Federation, whom were tightening their doping controls, or from his club Napoli, who could no longer defend him, or even from the Kamora, who no longer needed his power. The narrative officially shifted. Maradona was now the heel. Even La Repubblica published a poll that indicated that Maradona was the most hated person in Italy. But it got even worse for Maradona. Diego continued training with Napoli, despite his and the club's decision to part ways, but there was one last incident that ended everything for good.
Nell'immediato dopo partita di Napoli-Bari, Diego Maradona fu chiamato per il controllo.
El ídolo era trasladado hacia los tribunales para ser interrogado por segunda vez en menos de 24 horas. El propio presidente Menem.
Disgraced soccer star Diego Maradona is now in hiding after being hit with a 15-month worldwide suspension for using cocaine. The career of one of the all-time greats is all but over.
After Maradona failed a doping test on March of 1991, the Italian Federation banned Diego for 15 whole months until June of 1992. Was this in a way a cry for help from Diego? He mentioned in his autobiography that he tested positive almost on purpose and said, "I was pushing the limits. I knew I could get caught at any moment." But Maradona was absolutely convinced that many players took drugs with him. But funnily enough, only him and his Argentine teammate Caniggia were ever caught in the Italian league. Despite him playing mainly as a playmaker, Maradona ended this chapter with Napoli as their all-time top goal scorer at that time, as he scored 115 goals in 257 matches. He also scored 30 free kicks and assisted a further 71 goals as well. He successfully brought a winning mentality to a team that not once had tasted victory. In that season without Maradona, Napoli fell to 8th position and never even competed for the title in the following years, until they fell to the 2nd division in 2 occasions and went bankrupt. Maradona said in his autobiography, "They made me pay because I prevented Italy from being in the World Cup final." In the end, he left the country with 4 unresolved court cases, and it took several years of sporting and political frustration in Napoli for Maradona to rightfully reclaim his place as an honorary citizen of the city. After the ban was over in July of 1992, Napoli requested Maradona to report back just in time for pre-season training. Maradona refused to go back to a country that he thought was guilty of everything that happened to him. His agent Marcus Franchi asked Catalan agent Josep Mangella for help, and with the approval of President Ferlaino, they agreed to find a new club for Maradona, but Ferlaino refused to sell him to another Italian club. During that period, ex-national team manager Carlos Bilardo was managing Sevilla, and Josep Mangella suggested the idea to the Spanish club to sign Maradona. And following one of the most complicated negotiations ever, Maradona was back in La Liga again. There was also a helping hand in this transfer, which was FIFA. They wanted to see the player ready for the 1994 World Cup in the United States to make the tournament much more exciting. With the arrival of the Argentinian, Sevilla sold a record number of season tickets that season, as he made his official debut in October of 1992. He appeared as a different man, much more settled. At least that's what it seemed at first. But Maradona was still suffering from annoying injuries and played with a lot of painkillers each match, but he still had some flashes of the old Maradona. As he played a great match in a win against Real Madrid. But Maradona's body couldn't handle all this physical stress anymore. At 32 years of age, and with Diego's history of drugs, alcohol, and excessive lifestyle, it finally caught up to him, as he missed several training sessions. What happened on the ground was far from the expectations of fans and management alike, as Maradona's relationship with the club would sour after he and his teammate Simeone traveled to Argentina to partake in friendly matches with the national team against the club's wishes. From that moment, Maradona's motivation was waning as he sat himself out from some official matches, and for Sevilla, they took a big hit financially and tried to change the conditions of Maradona's contract. On the other hand, Maradona felt that the club didn't trust him at all, especially as they sent a private investigator to follow his private life. The nail in the coffin came in a league match against Burgos in June of 1993. Diego was suffering from pain and took painkillers at halftime to try to play the second half, but Bilardo subbed his star 7 minutes after the restart. Maradona threw the captain's armband and verbally insulted Bilardo. They then were involved in a fight at Diego's house. It was clearly over. After 30 matches and 7 goals, Sevilla ripped up Maradona's contract. Diego left European football while being 10 kilos overweight, and there were no real indications that he'll ever come back to football again. The Argentine national team had coped without Maradona within that period, as they won the Copa America in 1991 and 1993 with a new generation of stars, but the squad was struggling in the 1994 World Cup qualifiers. In September of 1993, Maradona was in the stands of the Monumental Stadium witnessing a massacre on the pitch as the Colombian national team scored 5 goals without reply on Argentina's home soil. At that moment, the fans started chanting Maradona's name, asking for his return. Only a week later, Diego accepted an offer from Newell's Old Boys, and following his debut with the club, and for the first time in 8 months, he got called up to the Argentine national team for a crucial match against Australia in the World Cup playoff. FIFA and other major sponsors were desperate for Maradona to appear in the 1994 World Cup, as a survey suggested that 90% of the US population were not aware that a World Cup was being held in their backyard, but the population knew Maradona. Argentina won the second leg and qualified to the World Cup at the expense of Australia, but there was an issue. Maradona found it difficult to recover from his matches and played only 5 official matches with the Old Boys before the two sides agreed to rescind his contract in January of 1994. But Maradona wanted to play in the World Cup at all costs, so he called his friend and personal trainer Signorini and bodybuilding coach Daniel Chirini and went to a place called La Pampa, away from all the reporters, the nightlife and the drugs. After a few months, Maradona lowered his weight considerably and took part in several friendlies and was ready for Argentina's first match of the World Cup campaign against Greece. In the match, Maradona looked graceful as ever and managed to score a beautiful goal. Maradona's reaction was like a scream of vengeance aimed at all his critics, to everyone that thought he was finished in this sport. In the second match, Argentina faced the Nigerians and managed to come back and score 2 goals with the help of Maradona. Maradona was asked to take a typical doping test after the match. He happily and calmly answered the request as he was escorted by a FIFA helper. But this was the moment when everything ended for Maradona again. The tests came back positive for a banned substance called ephedrine, which was a substance that could be bought over the counter in the United States, which helps in shedding weight. Maradona was not aware of this substance within his diet, which was prepared by his bodybuilding coach Daniel Chirini. After heated and long discussions, FIFA decided to pull Maradona out of the tournament.
And until the case is finally settled, Diego Maradona remains suspended from all footballing activity.
In August of 1994, Maradona was given a 15-month ban from all football activities. Nowadays, ephedrine is not considered a doping substance by FIFA, and questions are still asked about FIFA and their decision to not do their doping tests when Maradona played in the World Cup playoff. They clearly wanted him in the World Cup. Throughout his career, Maradona earned 91 caps for Argentina and scored 34 goals. His 94 World Cup campaign was his last involvement in international football as a player.
Lo único que quiero que quede claro a los argentinos que no me drogué, que no corrí por la droga, corrí por el corazón y por la camiseta. Nada más. Si yo llego a esta condición, no necesito drogarme para jugar. Si yo entreno como entreno, ¿qué necesidad tengo de buscar una droga? Decime. No quiero dramatizar, pero créeme que me cortaron las piernas.
Diego's ban stopped him from playing until September of 1995, but despite that, Maradona did test his managerial skills during that period. But the experiment was a failure, as after disastrous results and rifts with management, he left 2 clubs after a few months. Maradona talked about management and said, "I can't teach players things which nobody can do except me." Within that period, Maradona received the Ballon d'Or from France Football in recognition of his career. And following the conclusion of his ban, Diego returned to the pitch with Boca Juniors. At 36 years of age, Maradona was still capable of producing some fantastic moments, but his physical prowess was limited to say the least, and some injuries made him miss several league matches. In August of 1996, Maradona disappeared from the pitch for 11 months, as he was badly sinking into his drug addiction. In 1997, Maradona came back for the third time to Boca Juniors, but failed in a doping test within the season after taking cocaine, and was banned by the Argentine Federation. By his 37th birthday, Maradona finally announced his retirement from football after one last match. After 692 matches and 352 goals, and after lifting 11 official titles, Diego Armando Maradona was no longer a footballer.
Yo traté de ser feliz jugando al fútbol y hacerlo feliz a todos ustedes. Creo que lo logré y la verdad que hoy no me lo esperaba, porque esto es demasiado para una persona, demasiado para un jugador de fútbol. Le agradezco con mi corazón, porque se equivoque uno, no tiene que pagar el fútbol. Yo me equivoqué y pagué, pero la pelota no se mancha.
And now the question remains, despite his historical career and his place between the legends of the sport, did we really see the best version of Maradona?